Well, folks, it finally happened. DreamWorks has blatantly copied their animation rival, Disney, yet again. But we're not talking about similar concepts like Ants versus A Bug's Life or Megamind versus The Incredibles. No, sir, this time, DreamWorks has done their first attempt at a live-action movie remake via How to Train Your Dragon. I think it's safe to say that we all saw this coming. And from the looks of it, the movie is going to do well at the box office. Personally, I'm not surprised by the movie's financial success at all. But what does surprise me, though, is that the film wasn't half bad. I know, do not crucify me here, I'm just saying, all right? I'm just saying. Now, that does not mean it was incredible by any means, but it was faithful because, well, it was essentially a shot-for-shot remake of the original. I was just sitting there in the theater going, wow, this movie's so good. Wait, why am I not just watching the original instead? Part of me was incredulous too, where I was like, come on, DreamWorks, really? A remake of such a relatively new movie? It's only been about, oh my God! 15 years? No! It has been that long. Oh, death comes for us all. Granted, when it comes to live-action remakes, the bar could not be lower thanks to the standard Disney has set for them. Just this year alone, they missed the plot entirely with Lilo and Stitch and lost the audience for Snow White by making a terrible movie. But did DreamWorks learn from those very obvious mistakes to actually make something decent this time? And more importantly, what does this mean for DreamWorks as a brand moving forward? Folks, I'm not sure if I'm strong enough for live-action Croods or Megamind. But before we start, two things. Guys, I found a kitten a few days ago. He's in my office right now. His name's Figaro. He was sad and wet and full of fleas. He's happier now. Look at him, he's pretty cute, and he claws at my leg. You might hear him meowing during this recording. Just giving you a heads up, he's loud. And two, a shout out to this video sponsor, Fume, the leader in flavored air. Folks, breaking bad habits can be very difficult. I know, I have some. And with summertime coming up, it'll be even more difficult to not partake. So why don't you let Fume help you out this summer? Fume is not some e-cig or a vape. It's an award-winning flavored air device that you use to draw flavored air into your mouth. That means you can use this device anywhere, which is good for you because it will set you on the path towards better habits. You can enjoy a variety of flavors such as cinnamon hearts and spearmint ice. And for all of my stimming viewers out there, Fume doubles as a fidget device. Fume keeps you company whenever you're feeling anxious. I even use it whenever I'm recording, it helps. Over 500,000 people have switched to Fume to aid them on their journey towards better habits. So if you're looking to try them for yourself, then now is the time. Go give Fume a shot today by heading on over to tryfume.com/Saberspark and use my code Saberspark when you order a journey pack. You'll get an awesome topper that's especially great for those of us with oral fixations. Yes, I chew on mine like crazy. Again, that's tryfume.com/Saberspark or hit up the QR code on the screen. Thanks again to Fume for sponsoring our video, and now back to the video. Now, before we get into the synopsis of the remake, I just want to say real quick that I love the original How to Train Your Dragon. It is in my top 10 list, and I adore it for multiple reasons. The score, the characters, the universe, the animation, the dragons. It's just fantastic. Though I will say, the second and third movies aren't nearly as good. Not bad, but not as good as the original by any means. Those are some big Viking helmets to fill. So if you're watching this video and have not seen the original before, turn the video off. No, hold on. Watch the ad first and then turn it off. But if you don't care, or if you've already seen it, I'll do a quick recap of the original story anyway. So again, spoiler alert, you got your chance. How to Train Your Dragon follows a nerdy young Viking named Hiccup. At the start, he's not exactly warrior material. But the townspeople of Berk and his father will only accept him as one of their own if he can slay a dragon. But after he captures a Night Fury, the most elusive breed of dragon known to man, he slowly forges an emotional bond with it. Hiccup names a dragon Toothless, which, by the way, Toothless is like the coolest dragon ever. Like top 3. What a cool design. What a great character. And then Hiccup learns more about dragon behavior and creates a series of prosthetic inventions to help Toothless fly again. At the same time, he has to keep his new friendship a secret as his father, Stoic, is the chief of their village, leading the town on a tireless crusade to kill dragons for stealing their livestock. At the same time, Hiccup is in dragon training with the other kids in town, but he refuses to use the same violent methods they were taught to control dragons. With the help of Toothless and his crush, Astrid, Hiccup strives to find a way to stop the battle between his village and the dragons once and for all. It is an excellent, heartwarming film with an incredible score and a sweet message about acceptance and positive depictions of disabilities. So if DreamWorks was going to end up doing a live-action remake of any of their films, I'm not surprised that their first attempt ended up being dragons. The franchise is really popular worldwide, most of the cast is humans, and as long as the creature designs are convincing enough to draw people in, it was bound to make money. So, what exactly changed when translating this from animation to realism? Honestly, very little. And that is why I'm so torn on it. Let's get into some pros and cons I had with this movie because, yeah, I'm sad to report there were some things I liked. Now hold on now, I'm just saying some things I liked. I'm not going back on my previous video. But there are enough points of praise to bring up at least. The dragon designs were honestly pretty great. They were able to translate the designs in a satisfying way without them getting stuck in the uncanny valley. I was most impressed by the giant dragon at the climax because the scale of it was substantially more intimidating than in the original film. There are a few awkward green screen shots of Hiccup flying, but the dragons as is were convincing enough. Also, they looked a bit more like serious compared to the original. As expected, Toothless is adorable and ferocious at the same time. Though I did notice he's a bit more serious in the remake and also a bit larger as well. The costuming was pretty decent too. They feature lots of heavy textures and furs appropriate for the setting. Like if you like going to the Renaissance Fair, there are plenty of costume inspirations to get from this movie. Just be ready to sweat your butt off though. And I will say this, there's actual effort here with the live-action actors and how they are based on the animated characters. Again, they are not as good as the original, but I can see the effort. Though Astrid is like the one character who I don't really care for in this adaptation. But I'll talk about her here in a moment. Though also props, Gerard Butler's back as Stoic. His original, performance is better, but I can respect this. I'm like, oh, it's Gerard as Stoic and then Gerard as Stoic. That's kind of fun. It's Leonidas. But that's about all I had for positive. So let's get into what I wasn't crazy about. Like any adaptation, some things are bound to get changed or cut to work with the new scope of a film. But many of the changes they did end up making are mostly superficial, or were added to pad the film for time to get it over 2 hours. A few of these choices did start to bother me though. Some were relatively minor, mainly the colors. I know this is a cliche in live-action remakes by now, but the colors in this are so drab and dull. Watch the original, it's gorgeous, it's vibrant, it just jumps off the screen. But for some reason, they can never really nail the color grading because apparently getting too saturated looks unrealistic. It was pretty tough to ignore because anything shot outside of the forest was incredibly washed out and ugly. The pacing was noticeably slowed down to accommodate those huge costumes they were wearing. Yeah, it's more realistic for them to get between scenes, but it made it feel slower than necessary. The scene transitions from the first film were very snappy and quick, but here it drags more than it really should. They added more conversations between Snoutlout and his dad to give him a kind of story arc. I think it was intended to show some parallels to Hiccup and Stoic, but you can tell they are mostly added in for time. The female elder of the tribe is given more screen time during dragon training, but she has no additional dialogue. And then there's the test drive scene, which is one of my favorite moments in all of animation. It always gives me goosebumps. The action, the choreography, the gravity of the moment between Hiccup and Toothless finally connecting, and the music, outstanding. But here, the editing during the test flight scene and the remake is noticeably choppier, and the soundtrack change was really distracting for me. They did this weird chanting sound cue with the with hiccups flying in the air and disconnecting from Toothless. Nope, didn't like that. That drove me nuts as it interrupts the tension that was already there from the start. Also, the music does not sync as well with the momentum being built up in the original. And also, they did not do the fireball at the end. So yeah, the original did it better, no contest. But hey, that's the case across the board for this film. There's also a slight plot hole as it's missing the scene where Hiccup realizes the dragons aren't fireproof and explode from other dragons' fireballs. They obviously removed that scene from the live-action version because it was too cartoony. But they don't really explain how Hiccup knew to attack the larger dragon in the climax. However, the biggest issue I had with the movie was how they handled Hiccup's love interest, Astrid. And no, it wasn't for the dumb reason the rest of the internet was upset about. For some reason here, Astrid is a huge bitch to Hiccup in this movie. To the point of being overly aggressive and verbally hostile to him. No joke, there is a point where she's yelling at Hiccup, claiming she wants to become chief just to kick him out of his house. Which felt a bit extreme to me, honestly, but I'm guessing that was their attempt to make her more of a girl boss. I mean, who can say? In the original movie, Astrid is competitive, stubborn, and a little aloof. But she doesn't actively tease Hiccup like the others do. She's more just focused on her own goals, and only starts to question what he's up to once it affects her standing and dragon training. But once she learns the true nature of dragons, Astrid finally questions what they were taught after seeing the bond between Hiccup and Toothless. So, her wanting to help him comes about in a more organic way. It shows she can put aside ego to give credit where credit is due. That moment doesn't really happen in the live-action version. They do the whole romantic flight sequence, but she doesn't really compliment Toothless or Hiccup at the end. She just immediately wants to know what his plan is moving forward. And I know it seems like a small change, but it really affects any romantic chemistry they had before. The live-action version still has Dean Dubois, the same writer and director as the original film, minus his co-writer and co-director Chris Sanders, who I'm certain was too busy working on The Wild Robot and the Lilo and Stitch remake to be involved here. So was Dean's involvement the special ingredient that made this movie stay on track? Well, I think so. Yeah, I think it's safe to say. Despite his protests saying otherwise, this is the most clear-cut, shot-for-shot live-action remake I've ever seen. The storyboarding is almost exactly the same. The dialogue is directly lifted from the original. The cast is functional, but not exceptional. The movie just kind of exists, does what it's supposed to do, and that's about it. So while this film is faithful to the original source material to an unwavering degree, what we ultimately got feels kind of unnecessary more than anything else. For DreamWorks, they went with the safest possible option they could for doing a remake. But at the end, I didn't really feel too much. I wasn't overwhelmed, I wasn't underwhelmed, I was just whelmed. Okay, so why exactly does this movie even exist? Well, there's a handful of reasons. Dragons is one of the most lucrative franchises for DreamWorks, with the first 3 movies alone making over $1.5 billion globally. It's currently in second place for overall box office numbers, between Shrek and Kung Fu Panda respectively. In fact, it's been so popular that they now have their own designated section in Universal's latest theme park expansion, Epic Universe. This is not, again, a paid endorsement. I wish it was. I like money, but it looks like building that theme park alone cost an estimated $8 billion in total. making it one of the most expensive theme parks ever made. So the fact that this movie exists at all really leads me to believe, guys, I think it's a commercial disguised as a live-action remake. I hate to say it, it kind of worked on me. I've seen the TikToks, I've seen the footage. I want to go there. I want to go. Fuck. I hate that this worked on me. I should be shot by a dragon. The live-action release was timed roughly a month after Epic Universe opened as the perfect lead-in for families to plan their summer vacations. Universal wanted a surefire hit that, coincidentally, used as a commercial for their theme park, and boy did they get it. Sure, it's kind of manipulative, but they're absolutely going to make money off of this. And I guess, depending on how you see it, that leaves Dragon as potentially the best live-action remake we've seen so far. But considering the competition, that's not saying too much. Now, I went back and forth on how to feel about this, and honestly, this film is just as pointless as any other live-action remake. But was that creative decision done out of actually respecting the source material? Or were they just learning from their mistakes of their competitors? Who can say? From what I can tell, the live-action sequel for Dragon is already in the works with a tentative release date of 2027. And while I don't find that surprising in the slightest, it does bother me for what this means for DreamWorks as a company, and what films would work within this formula. But just looking at their previous movies at a glance, I can only see a handful of them working as live-action remakes. Like, I don't know if I want a live-action Croods, like I said before, or Megamind, or B-movie. Can you imagine that? I don't think the world's ready for that.
Is that same B?
Yes, it is.
I'm helping him sue the human race.
What?
Ultimately, I'm getting tired of remakes. It's just this desperate attempt to take something old and stale and to try and reinvent it for a modern audience. It's just nostalgia baiting. And people who do remakes are lame, desperate, and stupid. Huh? What? Oh. Well, here we are.